have to apologize. My messenger is blocking my communication. I can see your communication, but um I cannot see it never sends. So people are like, are you there? Are you being rude? What is happening? And I cannot respond to your messages. So email me at equinealt@gmail.com if you need to talk to me or hire me or pick my brain or whatever you want. Or you can even text me. My phone number's in the membership if you want, and it's on the website. The website, my business website is equine alt hyphen hai.com. I had to think about that for a minute. Oh my God. I don't use my company email that often, I guess. So today we have Erin Holder. I have had the pleasure of knowing Erin not that long, but long enough to know that she went from Florida to Hawaii to California, and she has the Veterinary Compassion Project, but also is a veterinarian who teaches and has her own thing. Are you working right now, or are you just
Not quite. Not quite. I'm just about ready to open up a consulting business for holistic medicine, herbal, homeopathy, but not quite ready to step back into that yet.
Yeah. And I think the Veterinarian Compassion Project actually is applicable to proactive pet parents. I think there is
Absolutely.
so much PTSD in pet ownership now. It's it's a hard thing. There's so much information on the internet. There's so much we can do. A lot of pet parents feel like they totally failed their pets and they live in shame and regret, which is really sad.
Yeah.
So I think what you are doing is applicable to anyone who cares and is um, raising like senior dogs or cats and attending them. I had a dog that went paralyzed, and it was like every 3 hours around the clock. I was taking care of him, and it was so hard. But yeah, so what do you have if people are really struggling with pet care? What do you have to offer them? This is
Well,
totally off topic, but I
yeah.
just wanted to
Okay.
pick your brain about this.
My other favorite topic is to empower pet owners to be advocates. Because even with our human patients, when we take a loved one into the hospital or to the doctor's office, we can really be just like bamboozled or rolled over and not heard. And so the most important thing is to learn the information that you need to learn with a professional and then just be an advocate for your animal and feel like it's okay to say, you know what? No, not right now. And that is a very powerful thing. But
Yeah,
that's just the tip of the iceberg. And every single human needs Veterinary Compassion Project because it's just a way for us to survive in a very difficult world where we're constantly being traumatized by social media and the news and all this. But, of course, I know veterinary medicine and I know veterinarians, and so it is called the Veterinary Compassion Project, but it's for everybody.
thank you, Erin. I just love that. Thank you so much. So today you're going to talk about quantum healing, and I cannot wait to see what you've got. I'm going to make you a co-host so you can screen share. And
Absolutely.
when you are going to step back into consulting in veterinarian practice, are you going to do it in Petaluma?
Well, I am, but I'm also going to cross state lines. So I'm going to be able to see different patients just as almost like what I said, an advocate for you, for your pet. So I'll be able to help with herbal medicine. I'm a huge proponent of whole food feeding. And then once I finish my homeopathy school, which we're going to talk about during the lecture, then I'll be able to offer homeopaths. But I do think I want to step back into the world of actually touching animals in Petaluma. I really miss the animals.
That's great. I can't wait.
Thank you.
And I think Petaluma needs it.
Petaluma needs it. It's
But
such a
yeah, I
cool
do.
town, but there's no holistic vet here. I'm like,
Mhm.
what's happening, guys?
Yeah, you think Bay Area is going to be super, super holistic, and it's fake holistic.
It's wanting for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. Are we ready?
yeah. I can't see your screen yet. So go ahead and hit there you go. Perfect.
Okay. Poppy, can you see that? Can you see the
It's perfect. And I'm
picture? Okay,
posting on Facebook right now, and that looks good too.
great. Okay, I have lots of favorite topics. I like to talk, I like to teach, I like to also be in the space of like mind. So, one of my most favorite things is to be in the energy of people who want better, who want to know better, who want to do better. And this just kind of came to me when I was in vet school and I was circulating the small animal ward. And we had to, I'll make a very, very long story brief. We had to euthanize a cat because this cat had endocarditis. So it's an infection around the heart. And the doctor said, basically, there's just nothing else we can do. We've done everything. And in that moment, that feeling of having to say that to the owner and watch all this transpire and having no control and no power left me feeling like this is not acceptable for me. I don't want to be in a situation where I say there's nothing else we can do. And we haven't touched on any of the other alternative medicines out there. So that in vet school set me on my path towards what I've done now. Okay, now there we go. So, what is energetic medicine? What is quantum healing? They're just really lovely terms, and they both mean the exact same thing. So we're just working in the energetic realm of a being, and that definition of this type of medicine is any energetic or informational interaction with a biological system to bring the body back into homeostasis. And so that's what our bodies are constantly trying to work on, trying to do, is to bring the body back into that state of being in homeostasis, which is at your optimal level of functioning. So I've had a very long and super fun path towards really delving into energy medicine. I graduated from vet school in 2002 and opened up my hospital right away. 2 years after, I wanted to practice a different type of medicine. I didn't want to have a boss. I wanted to do exactly what I wanted to do. And I immediately started studying acupuncture at Chi University. And that was my first introduction to energy medicine. Although when you're in vet school, you're very much entrenched in the science and there's not a lot of alternative care. And so I didn't even understand fully what acupuncture was. In fact, it took me decades to really grasp the full concept of what we were doing with acupuncture. We're putting needles in, we're moving energy, yes. And so that led me down the journey of herbal medicine, food therapy, Tuina, which is massage therapy. And I practiced that type of medicine for 20 years, and it was wonderful, and I loved it until one day I didn't. And that is what blossomed the Veterinary Compassion Project is I woke up one day and thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. It wasn't my patients. It wasn't my clients. I had the most incredibly beautiful, wonderful clients. It was managing this monstrous hospital, the 7 doctor practice with 50 employees and 5 buildings. And I was exhausted. And I made the decision instantly to sell, to walk away, and then spent a few years reflecting. That's my journey to Hawaii. Spent a few years reflecting on what actually happened. Why did I get burned out? What could I have done to prevent it? And when I started researching what was actually happening in the veterinary field, was pretty shocked at the high levels of suicide and just the general dissatisfaction, not enough support, no idea how to run a business. Just there's a lot of things, corporations coming in, a lot of things that make it very hard to practice veterinary medicine. And not just the veterinarians, the entire staff. When I say practice veterinary medicine, it is the entire veterinary staff. It's very difficult. So while I was in Hawaii, my daughter said, "Hey, mom, come join me with this class at school, and it's about healing touch." And I thought, well, okay, that sounds weird. But I did, in fact, go learn about healing touch, which we'll talk more about, which is a hands-on energetic medicine, and really loved the concept of it and spent the next year and a half delving into it, studying it, and taking 4 levels of healing touch. And then we decided that the Hawaii was super fun for 2 years, but we really wanted more space and we wanted a place for our horses. And so we ended up in Northern California. And the Veterinary Compassion Project led me actually to my final journey, which I'm in right now, which is homeopathy and learning. And that, to me, this is maybe I'm just biased, but the most beautiful form of energetic medicine. So that is my journey through energetic medicine to my studies now. And 100 years ago, Albert Einstein already knew what we're trying desperately to figure out now, which is everything is energy. And that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So, a pretty great and very forward quote by Albert Einstein. And when I look back or when I think about energy medicine now, and I think of all the discoveries that we're having, and sadly, our biological sciences are behind our physical sciences. Our physics are really making incredible leaps in understanding quantum physics and quantum healing, and our biological sciences are just behind. I can't help but to ask, why isn't everyone talking about this? Why isn't everyone excited? Because it's just such an incredible, powerful modality to use in healing. And then another great quote by a medical doctor who was a Nobel laureate said, "In every culture and in every medical tradition before ours, healing was accomplished by moving energy." Period. How beautiful. They all knew, the shamans, the Native Americans, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. We just got lost in the Western world. And we began to break down the body into parts instead of looking at our whole beings. And we wanted to go down the path of being able to explain everything. And that's a beautiful path. We love to have explanations, but we can get a little derailed with that. So, what actually is health? So, health is, for me, my favorite definition of health is freedom. And we think about health, one of the number one things that people say is that it's lack of disease, it's not being sick. But it's so much more than that because we exist not just in a physical plane, we exist in a mental and emotional plane. And so, when we're talking about full health, can we say that an animal is very, very healthy who has no physical symptoms, but is super anxious and terrified of life? This is not health. So, in order to attain and reach health, we need to work on all 3 of our levels. We want to work on our physical, our mental, and emotional level. We want to have free flowing energy throughout the body. We don't want any blocks. We want to operate in our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our ability to rest and digest. We have so much stress, so much going on in our lives. We tend to operate in our sympathetic overdrive where we stay in fight, flight, or freeze, and we cannot get out of it. And the sympathetic is extremely important. We need the balance. Everything in life is about balance, but it's when we tend to push over into staying in that, where everything we hear is, and this I find is an enormous problem in veterinary medicine, particularly emergency clinics. Like they just don't have a way to downregulate their bodies again. So they stay in this sympathetic overdrive. We want to restore the energy so that it's free flowing. These are all the ideas that I have of what health really is. So if we think about health and we think about disease, and it's the blockage or stagnation of energy, it's that, first thought in Chinese medicine of, wow, if we put a needle in this particular place, we're seeing things happen. And now we are understanding that we're unblocking the energy and we're allowing it to flow again. Disease is chronic inflammation. We can't talk about disease without talking about chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is just so prevalent, especially in our Western world, because we have taken so many toxins. We breathe, we drink the toxins, we eat the toxins. And once again, here we are living in our sympathetic overdrive. So we have massive amount of stress, massive stress hormones released in our body, and we are not able to rest and digest. And we lose our cellular polarity. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So all of these things that we're talking about in energy medicine is definitely a study and in a relation, of course, to humans, because our energy fields interact so much with our animals. So we have to learn how to take care of ourselves to be the best pet parents that we can be, because our energy directly affects our pets. We want energy flowing. And so there have been multiple discoveries or thoughts behind where and how the energy flows in our body. And in Indian medicine, ancient Indian medicine, there are 7 major chakras. And these chakras are energetic transformations, sort of centers of flowing energy. And then there are many, many minor chakras throughout the body, and these have been identified as acupuncture points. And what later science has caught up to these ancient, beautiful spiritual beliefs is that these chakras correspond to nerve plexuses in the body. And each chakra spins at a different frequency, and they can evoke different colors, vibrations, and sounds. And then from Chinese medicine and Indian medicine, we pull the meridians of flowing energy through the body. These are channels that the energy flows along. And they usually, all of these meridians and nadis will pass through the chakras because that's our energy transformation area. And then the newer studies now are we're able to identify our aura of biofield. These are massless fields that surround us. And I always like to say when you go into a party and there's somebody particularly good looking or particularly repulsive, and you're far away from them, but you still pick up on that energy, that's reading the aura and the biofield. And now we are able to measure those things and we're starting to be able to see them. And there's a lot of schools of thought that the diseases that manifest in the physical body are actually starting out in our biofield long before they actually manifest. And then an interesting fact is that this electromagnetic field, this aura or biofield, can be measured up to 8 feet away from the body. So here we are starting to make progress in understanding exactly what energy medicine is. Every one of us, we are constantly shifting the energy of our animals in every way. If we use a pharmaceutical drug, we've shifted the energy of the animal. If we give an injection, if we perform surgery, even if we give herbs or supplements, we are absolutely shifting the energy of our animals if we feed them particular diets. And in Chinese medicine, there's hot diets, there's cold diets. This is shifting the energy of the animal. And then last but certainly not least, we come home from a really hectic, crappy day and we're pissed off and we roar in the door and our animal's so happy to see us right there. They're absolutely 100% going to be affected by our energy. So we are, without a doubt, we're dealing in the energy field at all times with our pets. So let's talk about why, it is kind of a hot topic, energy medicine. And I really like to understand where it came from. So this gets just a little bit technical, and I'll try not to get too bogged down in it, but I find it to be extremely fascinating. And that's that already in ancient Greece, the philosophers who didn't understand the world wanted to understand and explain what they couldn't explain. So they set out to do that. And they theorized in their quest to understand and explain the world what the fundamental difference is between animate and inanimate objects. They see a bird, it's flying, it's breathing, it's reproducing, and a rock. Both are made of matter. We can touch them. What is it that makes these two things clearly so different? One is living, one is not living. And that was an intangible force that created this distance, this difference. Nobody could see it, nobody could understand it. So it must be an intangible force. And that theory was the origin of the vitalist theory. And the vitalist theory is that there is some special force. There's something out there that separates the living from the non-living. And Aristotle was the first to actually term it psyche. And in his mind, it wasn't the soul or the mind. It was actually everything that drives every biological process in the body, including reproduction. So this is a very huge distinction and brings it into more of a scientific realm instead of more of a philosophical realm, because it wasn't just the soul. It was what is making our digestion work? What is making our heart pump? What is making everything happen in the way that it happens? And so they termed this the vital force. And at the same time, the Chinese were working on this. Their vital force was labeled qi, and the Indians were calling it prana. So we've got simultaneous developments of this intangible force that's working with living creatures, that's flowing in and out of living creatures. And when the living becomes non-living, you can see quite a distinct difference with this loss of vital force. So it actually continued, the vitalist theory continued through the period of enlightenment, which is the 18th and 19th century. And during this time, the scientific revolution was happening, and scientists were really starting to be able to see things. Like they were seeing that, oh, there's actually bacteria. Oh, let's call this, a virus. They were able to see these, they were able to explain what was going on. Rather than theorize it. And during this time in the late 18th century, just a little asterisk because we're going to swing back to it, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann discovered homeopathy. And homeopathy is very much based in the vitalist theory. But as the time grew on, there became more of a skepticism of what the vitalist theory was, because there is definitely this desire to be able to explain the unexplainable. So scientists really didn't want to say, it's this magical life force. They wanted to know exactly what was going on so that they could have that explanation. So in 1820, Hans Christian Ørsted moved the compass needle with flowing current, and therefore he discovered that magnetism comes from electricity. And there was a huge turning point in the vitalist theory. In 1820 to 1855, they continued learning about electromagnetism, and that they're seeing that the electric current can be produced in a magnetic field as it flows through a wire. So anyway, this is the beginning of trying to understand the biofield or electromagnetism that occurs in living beings. So they named it biomagnetism, and it's the fundamental law. Let me just move this up a little bit so I can see. There we go. The fundamental law of electromagnetism is that electrical currents, such as those that flow through the body, must produce magnetic fields around the body. So this was a huge discovery, because now they're feeling like they can say, okay, so it's not this magical vital force. This is actually just electricity that's flowing through the body. The electricity, the magnetism is what is actually the essence of the living being. In 1906, Einthoven recorded the first ECG, which measured the strongest field in our body, which is the heart. Interestingly, I think a lot of people would think that it would be from the brain, but it's not. The brain produces a much smaller electrical field. In 1929, that was actually recorded. So this, we were talking about a little bit earlier is the beginning of pushing away from the vitalist theory and moving into the mechanistic theory. And this is that life is a machine, that the body is a machine that can be broken down into all the different parts. And we can take those different parts and individual aspects and study them, and then we can replace them if we need to. And that really shifted away from the vitalist theory, which is a a holistic one force all flowing throughout the body, and we cannot in the vitalist theory separate a part from a part. And this is now our current theory in Western modern medicine. So we know that if we have a kidney infection, we're going to a urologist. If something's wrong with our heart, we're going to a cardiologist. We have broken down our bodies into such tiny, minute areas that we don't, in fact, look over the whole entire body in conventional medicine. And that's a huge pushback now with people realizing that we are not machines. We are not living with our heart in isolation. Everything is dependent on each other. And where Western medicine really is wonderful is acute medicine and surgical intervention when it's needed. It's a beautiful type of medicine, but it's overreached into our chronic problems, and that has caused a tremendous downfall in the health of people. So in the 1930s, Albert Einstein and Erwin Schrödinger discovered that two separate particles remain connected without being in direct contact. To me, that was utterly incredible because in the 1930s, that's quite a long time ago, they're theorizing that two particles separated in space are absolutely connected without being connected. And that was the first theory and thought of quantum entanglement. So they didn't have an explanation for it, except they thought, well, maybe the particles are traveling faster than light, and that's what's happening. But now we know today that quantum entanglement exists. And in simple terms, it means that the two particles are linked together in a way that they share a single quantum state, no matter how far apart they are. So, to me, and the reason why I put this in our lecture, first of all, it's fascinating that this was theorized 100 years ago, and we found a way to explain it now. In 1972, John Clauser, a postdoc at UC Berkeley, and Stuart Freedom actually proved this experiment to be true, and they won a Nobel Prize for it. So this was theorized 100 years ago. And the point of me bringing this up is that we're so adamant that because we can't see something, it must not be true. And so this is groundbreaking because what we're finding now is that all these theories of these brilliant past philosophers, physicians, scientists who theorize this is coming true because we're actually able to invent things or invent experiments that can see, document, and measure. And so it boggles my mind that the biological science community is not aware of this to have a much more open mind on what the body can do. Because just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So in 1963, they really started to ramp up studying the magnetic fields around the body. In 1967, they started to measure the biomagnetic fields in space around the body, not within the body. And in 2004, they're detecting the heart's magnetic field several feet from the body. And then, if you guys have never heard of an organization called HeartMath, I highly encourage you to look up HeartMath and learn. They have really wonderful cutting edge research, and they've broken through a lot of barriers in energetic medicine. And McCrady's research is one that he's just done a really wonderful job in proving that the magnetic field is not only there, but it's produced by the heart and it travels like radio waves, and it goes instantly throughout the body and out and outside of the body, reaching persons or animals, of course, because we're all interested in animals, within the range of communication. So we can, in fact, our physical being, our energetic being will absolutely impact another being that's close to us. And so that again is coming through the door and not taking a moment to recenter is very important to understand. And so he continues on this idea of studying entrainment, which is another fascinating topic of now we've got two beings that are placed together and their heart frequencies, those radio waves, will lock into each other. And so these two different waves become one single wave working together. And this is how we talk about when we talk about energy medicine, even with energy, the hands-on healing, we talk about this entrainment because we, as energetic healers, are operating at a higher frequency if we're taking care of ourselves and doing what we need to do to be healthy individuals. Remember, health is on the physical, mental, and emotional planes. So we're taking care of ourselves in all these ways, then we're operating at a higher frequency, and our patients come into us and we can lock in with them. And then what does energy want to do? It wants to travel to the higher frequency. So it's going to travel up to the frequency. So even just being and having just having this higher energy, encompassing this and being around your pets, your loved ones, your patients, this can be such a powerful healing tool. And so then, of course, they went on to understand the frequency locking is the R waves of one subject's ECG, heart, becoming precisely synchronized with the onset of the EEG alpha waves, the brain of another subject of up to 5 feet away. So these are two oscillating bodies that lock into phase and they vibrate in harmony. So we know that all of this is going on simultaneously around the world. People are trying to explain, they're trying to advance medicine, they're trying to help heal suffering. And we see that in China, they fully embrace the vitalism theory and understanding that there is a chi force. And they're using acupuncture needles to hit certain areas to unblock energy and move energy. They have branched off, of course, many thousands of years ago with herbal medicine. And herbal medicine can go either way. Herbal medicine can be a vitalist healing, but it can also be treated as a suppressive allopathic medicine. So even though I have it under vitalism, please understand that a lot of herbal medicine is actually mechanistic. And then we have our Western world, two very distinct theories is our vitalism, and we started to embrace homeopathy. And now we've got a wonderful push with hands-on healing for nurses and hospitals. It is an incredibly powerful tool. And then we definitely have our Western medicine of mechanistic, which is our modern surgery and pharmaceutical drugs. And alongside that, in India was working on as well energetic medicine with Ayurvedic medicine. And this Ayurveda is very much like energetic medicine, like traditional Chinese medicine. But those Ayurvedic herbs can also function in a mechanistic way. And then India is one of our huge, like they've really embraced homeopathy. There's quite a bit of practitioners. Really in India, like you're going to go see a homeopath before you even go see any other type of doctor, typically in that country. So, to narrow the definition of energy medicine, we've got our healers on one side and we've got our researchers on the other. And they're both very important because we healers may know what we're doing intuitively. We may feel what we're doing, but we really want our researchers to keep doing this very important work and helping us understand what exactly it is that we're doing. So our researchers are going to study the electromagnetism. They're going to come up with different frequencies. They're going to relate this to disease and health. And this is just as important as our healers out there doing this beautiful work of healing. And so when we talk about energy medicine in different ways, we're just a conduit. We are taking energy from different places, whether it's in homeopathy using the medicines in homeopathy, or whether it's in hands-on healing and we're pulling energy from the earth. We're just a conduit to give the body the energy that it needs to heal. So we're going to do a little fun experiment. So I'd like for everybody to just close their eyes. And first of all, let's just put both feet on the ground and just take a minute to get grounded. A couple of deep breaths. Now we're going to invite the energy to come in from the earth up to our feet, up through our bodies. Feel the energy just come up through your body, passing through your heart to your shoulders, down through your hands. And start with your hands, with your eyes closed. Start with your hands about shoulder width apart. And now slowly bring your hands together very slowly while you continue to invite the energy to come in. And at some point, you're going to feel your other hand without touching. You can feel the energy. It can get warm, it can get tingly. Okay, you can open your eyes. So that's just a very quick, fun experiment to see. Obviously, we're energetic beings, we're energetic bodies. We have energy flowing through us. We can feel it. I immediately, my hands start to tingle. I don't know if you guys feel any heat or any coolness, or you actually feel something physical. You can definitely feel things there. And that's the energy. And so we're just taking that energy and we're just directing it towards our patients in hands-on healing to bring about the body's ability to heal itself. So we're definitely going to talk more about that. So working in the electromagnetic field, there's a distinction for me in working in the electromagnetic field versus working with the vital force. And so we'll definitely going to just make that distinction. So with our herbal therapy, with our we've got a patient that's very hot. We're going to give them a cooling herb or a food therapy. This is working in the electromagnetic field to do what? Bring about health, bring about balance, bring about homeostasis. And Reiki is a beautiful modality of spiritual energy. So Reiki is a form of meditation where you are meditating to lock in and entrain with a patient and raise their frequency and to help their body heal. Bioenergetic testing is also a way to evaluate energy imbalances in pets. And this modality is using a computer. In the 1950s, Dr. Reinhold Voll of Germany noticed that there were electrical currents that were moving along the acupuncture meridian. So he was an acupuncturist and he was started to measure how these currents, that these currents actually correlated to our acupuncture meridians. He found that at the points, acupuncture points, the electrical resistance was lower. And so he developed a machine to test this. And over the years of testing, he developed normal measurements in healthy humans. And he determined that when the measurements lowered, there were signs of deficiency. And if they were higher, they were signs of excess, which could be inflammation. And so this is exactly what Chinese medicine already has said. We know there's deficiencies and excesses, and we know we're trying to bring the body back into balance. And what Dr. Voll was doing was just bringing a tool in to help measure. So the difference between working in the electromagnetic field is that you will absolutely have an effect on a patient, but you could still be tentatively suppressing symptoms. And I say that with love, knowing that certainly I have throughout my years done things that I thought were holistic, but I was absolutely suppressing symptoms. And so what we mean when we're working on the vital force is we're actually tapping that intangible, the unknown, to do the work that it needs to do. And so there is an innate intelligence of the body, but the innate intelligence works within a very confined boundaries. If if it were perfectly intelligent, if it had its own brain, we would never be sick. We would be superhuman. We would be healing from everything. But the vital force does work within its boundaries, and it does succumb to disease. So when the outside force of a sickness, say coronavirus, is too powerful for our vital force, we are going to get sick. When something outside of our world, our stress, our environmental conditions, workplace, maybe grief, maybe our diet is terrible, we're lowering our vital force, so our vital force can't do what it needs to do. So these are in situations and when we need to pull in to tap the vital force so that we can either make it stronger or realign it or balance it to help battle and fight what we need to do. And there are three ways. I'm sure there's probably more, but these are three ways that are really awesome. George Fatukis is a brilliant homeopath, and in his book, The Science of Homeopathy, he writes that the three forces or the three modalities that actually work on the vital force are acupuncture, hands-on healing, and homeopathy. And so these are important for us because we are tapping into our source. And if we're tapping into our vital source, we're not suppressing any symptoms. We are allowing our body to heal the way it needs to heal. We're unblocking energy that's blocked. We're sending in energy where it needs to be sent. We are not telling the body where the energy needs to go. We're simply a conduit to provide the energy so that the body can heal. And in homeopathy, we can provide those energetic imprints of substances so that they can stimulate the vital force and heal, to heal. So in 1990, Dr. John Zimmerman of University of Colorado Health Science Center proved that the energy signals that practitioners project from their hands during a healing session, measured in both frequency and strength, matched the energy signals of clinical devices created by scientists to repair certain tissue. So let's back up and take that apart for just a minute. So scientists understand that the body's electromagnetic fields. So now scientists are going down the road of finding what frequency produced by the electromagnetic machine will heal a tumor in this area, a tumor in that area, an infection that it can't heal. And so they're finding out all these different frequencies and labeling it. And now Dr. Zimmerman is saying that without knowledge of what frequency is coming from our hands, it's the innate intelligence of the frequency of the energy that it matches what the body needs to heal itself. That I still like when I talk about that, I can't even understand like how beautiful and brilliant this is and why everybody's not talking about it all the time, because that's just kind of what I want to do is talk about it all the time. So, and even further studies have occurred, which is finding out what our energy healing work is doing at the cellular level. So we know PEMF, there's the big thing with the blankets and everything. We know there's pulsed electromagnetic fields, which could be originating from our hand, it could be originating from a homeopath, it could be originating from a PEMF blanket, is initiating a cascade of reactions in the cellular membrane. So sorry, this is a lot of science, but in the cellular membrane, it's having reactions. The reactions are headed to the nucleus and the DNA. So it's getting to not the smallest, but a very important part of the cell that controls the activation of many things, which are gene expression, enzyme activation, protein synthesis, cell proliferation, growth and differentiation, immune surveillance, tissue repair, chemotaxis, dealing with different chemicals in the body, contraction, regeneration, tumor invasion. So, like, there's just nothing that it's not touching. And in 1994, Gilman and Rodbell won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for demonstrating that the G proteins receive signals from outside the cell to turn on many cellular amplification. So we have these G proteins, and they are actively looking for signals. Those signals are received outside of the cell. Once it's received, that stimulates these cellular amplification systems, so making more cells. Therefore, not only does the body receive the energy at a cellular level, but the G proteins are able to create an amplification process that aids in healing. So now, not only is our energy work that we're doing stimulating the body to heal, it's stimulating the cells to amplify and create more of that healing power. So you can see how powerful it is. So, what else can hands on healing do? Well, we talked a little bit briefly about realigning the polarity of the cells and stimulating the vagus nerve. And so, the polarity of the cells, this lecture was written for a bunch of veterinarians at the Holistic Conference. So, it is a little technical, but in general, if our bodies are energy and our entire bodies are magnets, well, then therefore, polarity of cells must be critical because we know what happens when you put two magnets together that are the same. Yeah. And if they're opposite and they're sliding together, they're functioning perfect. That's exactly what needs to happen. So we want the positive, the negative, the positive, the negative. We want our cells lined up. When our cells are lined up, the cells can function exactly what they need, exactly as they need to do that. And that helps with reaching homeostasis. If we've got a disease or a cancer in the body, that cellular polarity is just blasted away and there's no contact, direct contact, and there's no ability for the body to detox itself. And so the body prefers the apical basal polarity. That type of arrangement means just top bottom. And these epithelial cells that have this polarity, as they're lined up, they provide one of our first barriers against any type of foreign substance coming in and causing problems. In addition, our neurons, which of course our nerve system is made up of neurons, they must be polarized to function properly as well. So it's critical in normal cellular migration. So cellular migration is an important concept in cancer formation and metastasis. The cancer can blow out the polarization, and now you have this asymmetrical cellular division, and then that leads to metastasis. So keeping your cells healthy and the polarity lined up is extremely important. And then lastly, we need the polarity of the cells. We need them healthy and lined up so that detoxification can occur. So we have to get the crap that's in our body out of the cells. Okay. I think we're coming close. I know this is so much information, but healing touch, hands-on healing also does a beautiful job of stimulating our vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve gets a lot of talk because it is our parasympathetic stimulation. And it's essentially why we meditate and why meditation is such an important part of it should be such an important part of life. And I have to just go off on this tangent really quickly because most people, when I talk to them about meditating, they think meditation is about quieting the mind. And that and they say, Erin, I cannot do it. I cannot sit down and quiet my mind. It makes me frustrated and I get off the pillow. And that is such a false way to look at meditation. That is perpetuated by a lot of meditation instructors. When you sit down to meditate and you have a thought, that is simply a stress release. So when we sit down to meditate and we think, I got to feed the kids, I got to feed the dog, I need to go to the grocery store, I'm shopping, I'm in the grocery store shopping. This is not a failure at meditation. This is simply your body releasing and letting go. So congratulate yourself for that. And if you sit down on your mat and you think that your mind needs to be completely clear, you will be frustrated. So please don't do that. And if you have walked away from meditation because of that, try giving it another try and then patting yourself on the back when you have all those thoughts because they're going away. And over time, your body will get quieter and quieter. And what you're looking for is that millisecond between the thoughts. That millisecond is called the gap. And that gap between the thoughts is what resets your body. And you won't even notice it happened, but it did. And over time, it becomes a longer and longer gap. And then you can get out of your sympathetic overdrive and into more of a parasympathetic or a more balanced situation. Because the vagus nerve, the parasympathetic, it does a lot. Mood, taste, speech, breathing, digestion, skin, muscle, like it does a lot. It's our rest and digest. It's the longest of the 12 cranial nerves, and it's really important in the brain gut axis. We could have a whole nother hour lecture on the brain gut axis. I love that topic, but everything in our gut is mirrored in our brain. Everything. So we have a brain microbiome and a gut microbiome, and scientists don't understand why it's mirrored. And so everything affecting our gut directly affects our brain. So it's really easy to understand and see why there's so much mental disease in this country. And when I say that, I mean that about our pets too, because our pets are absolutely, we see behavioral issues and it's directly related to their gut health. The vagus nerve helps immunomodulatory properties, so it's helping our immune system. It's helping with inflammation in the body. That's a whole nother hour of lecture was inflammation and what causes it and what happens. And then finally, we get to my favorite topic of the hour because I've just started school. I'm 6 months into school and learning about this modality to think I've always been heading towards and never knew. But it is the final path for me, the final thing that I'm excited to start practicing because you're genuinely working at the vital force. And I worked for 20 years as an acupuncturist and a herbalist, and while I had many successes, there were still some failures. And so I always feel like there should be something else out there. I couldn't quite get to the vital force. And finally, I found homeopathy, which is going to be able to reach it. So in the 1790s, Samuel Hahnemann, he was a MD, very, very brilliant German whose father used to lock him in his room to think. So he really wanted his son to be able to work through problems and think and solve. And he did just that. He went to medical school at a very young age. He spoke 7 languages. And when he started practicing medicine at this time, he thought, how horrific. We are bloodletting, we are giving mercury, we're causing poisoning. Like he thought this was the most insane medicine. And he said, I'm renouncing this, I'm out. There's no way that I'm going to do this type of medicine. So he decided he would start making money by translating medical text. And he did just that. So he started translating all these medical texts and came upon a very interesting thought was cinchona bark. And this was started to be a realization that it could treat malaria. And the theory behind it was that this bark could treat malaria because it was bitter. And Hahnemann thought, but there's a lot of other bitter things. They don't treat malaria. So why is this treating malaria? And it turns out that he decided brilliantly, because thanks to his dad, I guess, that he would start taking the cinchona bark and he would see what would happen. So he started taking this bark of the tree and it instantly started developing malaria signs. And he thought to himself, it's treating malaria. I'm a healthy individual. I'm taking it and I'm getting malaria symptoms. And so he began to process this and think, no, it has nothing to do with the bitter. It has to do with the properties of this bark producing these symptoms. And he went on to create although he was not the first to say like cures like, he is the most well known. So he published his first paper on homeopathy in 1796. Homeopathy was born. And it's the theory that if you elicit symptoms in a healthy patient, you record all of those symptoms in approving, and then you match those symptoms of the healthy patient to a patient that has those symptoms because they're sick and they have a disease. What he was doing was matching frequencies, and he didn't know it. And he said, I don't know why this works. Don't bother me with that. I'm not going to do it. I'm sure not going to chop people's arms up to bleed them out. I'm not going to give them mercury. This is gentle, it's compassionate, it's loving, and it works. And so he set out to prove a lot of other medicines, and yeah, the rest is history with homeopathy. So this is super powerful because it's tapping that vital force. And we're using energetic signatures to do that, which is why it's quackery to a lot of, they don't understand it. But in the 1930s, when Einstein said, hey, these two particles are communicating, that was quackery. So the issue with homeopathy is just it hasn't been explained yet, and it will be. So there's been many, 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 many attempts to invalidate it. Despite all that, it's thriving, and it's thriving because it actually works. And so in 2019, over 100 countries use homeopathy, and over 200 million today use homeopathy. So it's widespread. People are wanting more. They want better. They want better for their animals. It's why I was very successful in Florida with my practice, because we know we don't need to vaccinate our animals every year. We know that we don't need to treat with suppressive drugs. We know that there's a better way. We know that we don't want to pull the science diet off the shelf and feed that to our animals. So there's just a better way. And this is just, again, we're going back to the whole world was developing all these different modalities, but we seem to be in our Western world stuck in this inability to embrace other, but we're getting better. We're getting there. And it's really exciting time to be a doctor. Okay, that's it.
Yay, that was awesome. I love that so much. And it's actually a lot that I've been pondering lately. Is just overall body flow, body systems flowing, the mind, body, soul, spirit connection, and the vagus nerve. How do we I love to say what happens in Vegas never stays in Vegas. So,
Yeah.
so how do we reset an animal's vagus nerve? I guess homeopathy. I love homeopathy. I'm all about it. I have an Indian homeopath. We communicate via email and Zoom. She is highly acclaimed and super affordable.
Right.
So yeah, it's the way to go. She's very no nonsense, takes the case, throws a remedy out there.
Mm,
See you another day.
yep.
Super
Yeah, it's
easy.
really amazing. It's very difficult. I will tell you, I've studied all these different things on my resume, and this has been by far the most difficult thing I've studied so far.
Isn't that well, you've explained it so well. Like I
Thank you.
enjoyed this so much. Thank you, Erin, for your time because I really feel like you you have such clarity for everything you're doing. And I love the particle, the entanglement aspect of it. Man, that's so cool how they can communicate and not be related in that regards is they can
Right?
be distant. So that kind of shocked me. Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that
And
up.
there's so many more studies out there. Like the studies that are happening right now are very exciting. There's studies of entanglement that are happening across the world. So it's not 10 feet. It's that particles are changing across the world.
Well,
So,
I do think that towns, countries, states have certain vibrations that people match.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's why people live in different areas, I think.
Absolutely. And it's shocking to me once again to say and admit that the biological sciences are so far behind the physics and the physical sciences.
So the cool thing about iridology is you can assess the iris to your constitutional remedy of homeopathy.
All
Because
right.
it's hard to find a constitutional remedy if the pet owner doesn't
It is.
translate to you
Yep.
and if they don't actually understand what's going on with their animal, right? So you're
Absolutely.
at the mercy of their explanation for your case.
And even me going through homeopathy school and as a homeopathy patient, learning how to talk to my homeopath, what information that they need is a challenge. So we have to we have to train our clients what we need from them, the information that we need from them.
Girl,
So,
you need to learn iridology after this.
sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think you'll totally dig it. Because you can see all the congested detox if the organs are not detoxing, if the cellular system's not detoxing,
Absolutely.
and homeopathy bypasses the digestion. So you just energetically hit the whole system. if you nail your right remedy.
Yeah. When you nail the right remedy, it's magical. And I hate to say that because it's science. It's science. It's not magical, but it is magical because we don't see anything like that in Western medicine. We don't see where we can pick the right drug and suddenly they're better with no repercussions down the road because the minute that drug stops, if it's not an acute disease, it's going to come back.
And I love to say that the body is a Rubik's cube. The system, the digestion, the urologist, all those systems, it just drives me crazy how nobody communicates to each other.
Mm,
It's just so primal
yep.
and limiting and unrelational.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah. You guys want to ask Erin any questions?
Fire away.
I'm confused. You used homeopathics on my girls.
I did not. I used homotoxicology. So
Would you
that was a
clarify?
really good lesson for me too. So homotoxicology is a combination of homeopaths, and you're just throwing something at the wall to see what sticks. So what I'm learning now is actually classical homeopathy, where you're choosing one remedy at a time to administer in a smallest dose. But even throwing, that being said, even throwing stuff at a wall worked. It worked. Because amongst those frequencies, those homeopath remedies, there was one that matched the frequency of your pet. And so I'd get some success.
Remember the beta test we did with the acupuncture and the mason jars and stuff? You should tell Poppy about that.
Oh, yeah, NAET. Yeah.
That was
Nambuja,
wild.
the Nambuja pads, allergy elimination therapy. So that was another way of using acupuncture to try to decrease the allergens in the body. And it was fun, and I got some success with it. But I think I can get a lot more with classical homeopathy.
So you actually expose the animal to the allergen in a jar and then acupressure.
Yeah, we used
Right.
acupuncture to open up the channel so that the body could be exposed to it far away, not enough to cause problems, and to then be accepting of it. I actually had it done myself. It was pretty fascinating.
It
I
actually worked on Jezzy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Remember that much
I've
better.
had a similar naturopath that would treat me that way, muscle test through all my weaknesses, and then he'd do a gait pattern to strengthen myself to
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
change
Yeah.
my
Yeah, and it's not one is better than the other. I mean, I'm loving homeopathy. I can't get enough of it, but there are just times when all the modalities might be indicated or needed. And it's not, I have a barn cat that was so sick and I tried a remedy and I know the remedy was going to work, but this cow was so sick he couldn't breathe and he was miserable. And so did I pull doxycycline out? Yeah, I did. I gave him doxycycline. He's much, much better. And now I'm going to go back and try to heal his body from the antibiotic after. So it's just the goal is that you should be incorporating some form of energetic medicine into the healing of your animal. That's my goal. That's what I love.
So how do you get your animals to meditate?
They'll actually join you for the most part when I meditate. Like my cat, I have one cat who's like, "Zhoo." Yeah, she loves it, but it's just a matter of being in that space because your heart frequencies are going to lock, and so they're going to usually get very calm, usually get very calm.
I love that. Any other questions, Trisha? Go ahead and unmute if you have a question. Kim?
Well, I mean, it's not really a question. It's just more of a kind of an observation. And as as I listened, and this came from actually a medical intuitive, but she keeps saying, we're not healing, we're allowing the body to heal itself. And so I'm looking for another word than healer because that almost has, a godlike sense to it or something. So I don't know, a healing facilitator. I don't know.
On
But
the flip side of that, you're the one that went through the training that's opening your heart and doing the work and directing the energy. So
mhm.
it's 100% correct that the body is healing itself and we are just a conduit. But I
Mhm.
think it also gives you like the I don't the not applause, but just the feeling that you are the one that is the facilitator of it. And that's beautiful.
Hmm.
But I don't think that should be downplayed.
No, not downplayed. I just think, I don't know, maybe because I'm approaching shelters and I'm getting like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
like ghosted, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's the word. Maybe it's
Oh,
the word that I
absolutely.
come
In
across
that
as being like,
situation,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. And that's my world. So
They're
that's,
gonna be like, woolly, woolly, woolly. Oh yeah, come in here and yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
You got to find a more scientific entrance, which is what I did with this presentation is like, hey
yeah,
guys, like this was presented at a holistic conference, but hey guys, hey scientific veterinarians, like this is the science. Like you're just not going to the research. It's
yes,
there.
yeah. I just found a new naturopath, and she presented the science along with her, conclusions, but she's going to use natural medicines or natural remedies to work on it. And it was like that was so much, I don't know, that was it had more credibility to me than the Indian woman who just flipped my feet and said, "Here's your sheet, go take it."
Abs-
Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. It was, yeah, it was just, I don't know. It made more connections for me. But
absolutely.
we all grew up in the pharmaceutical world, so
Yes, we did.
it's a big jump to just say, boy, that was a mistake.
And Dr. Erin, I love that you brought up the fact that herbal medicine could be suppressive.
Yeah.
And
I
I
look back on
believe,
a lot of my cases and I know 100% without a doubt I suppressed those symptoms. Did it help? Yes. Should I have done it? Maybe. Yeah. It's not all bad to do that, but let's just be aware of it. Let's just have the conversation about it.
right, absolutely. I always ask people what their goal is. Why are you doing that? What's your goal? Like,
Yeah.
did you just grab it because you read about it and it sounded like a good idea, or is it actually something with some thought behind it and deeper thought? So I was always taught by my naturopath, I was mentored by a human naturopath to think backwards, to just keep trying to
Mm.
get to the root cause and unravel, like, okay, this looks like the obvious choice, but why? And why is that happening? And what's the root cause and the system failure in that and the lack of flow? So,
Yep.
yeah, thank you for your
Perfect.
time today. That was
Beautiful.
so much fun. Julie, any comments?
I remember coming back from Jersey once with my dad, who was 80 something, and he was going through kidney failure. We were driving together, and I was giving him Reiki in the car. He thinks I'm doing voodoo and whatever. And he just said, keep going, whatever you're doing. I feel really good. I'm just driving straight through. We drove straight through to Orlando, and he went right after that to Tampa from New Jersey. He was so empowered by me just going like that. He's like, voodoo, but whatever, keep doing it.
And it's a really good point too. Like if you're out there listening to this lecture and you've never experienced it, like go experience it. There's all kinds of energetic healers. Even sound healing is beautiful. Go get a sound bath. There's just so many different ways to take care of yourself, and we really forget to do that. We really put our foot on the gas because we have to save every animal. And I feel like it's particular of people who work with animals because we get so entrenched in trying to save every patient that comes our way. And we can't take a break and we can't take ourselves away from it because we sacrifice an animal. And the truth is that you're just sacrificing yourself and you're no good to those animals. And those animals are going to thrive if you take care of yourself and you thrive. It's the
Mhm.
most important thing I can say today.